America is a country that intrigues me and infuriates me in equal measures. Still doesn't stop me wanting to achieve one of my lifetime ambitions, which is to visit it before I die. Just like my forefathers did 150 years ago, when tales of a great new land made their way across the Atlantic, and basically to lure thousands of young Irishmen across the water. Irishmen fed up after centuries of hardship and British oppression. Come to America, visit the land of the free, home of the brave. Come with me to the land of opportunity, came the call. A bit like a pre-CIA propaganda call. But although they were ignorant mid-19th century Irishmen, they still had some concerns. For instance, isn't America full of millions of savage Indians? Not anymore, son. And I'll let you in on a little secret. They weren't really that savage. We just portrayed them as such to excuse our genocide of them. The truth be told, they were more like fair weather Eskimos. So away these Irish guys sailed, thousands of them, full of hope and full of optimism that they were going to have a brand new life in a great new land, only to be accosted as soon as they set foot on the boardwalk and have a shiny new rifle thrust in their hands and the promise of 3 square meals a day. Now go out there, son, and serve your country. Only to end up in some muddy field, shot dead by some southern redneck, fighting for his right to treat his paid-for Negro like an animal. Well, at least I think the good guys won that war, I think. But even then, the South wouldn't leave without a parting shot. That shot being the one that killed probably the greatest president they had up to that point. But at least before he died, good old Lincoln had managed to fulfill his destiny, and the black man was now free. Well, kind of. He only had another 90 years to wait before he could sit on white man's bus or drink white man's water. And the man most instrumental in making that happen, he too found himself assassinated after he had won. God bless you, Martin. But I'm beginning to see a trend here. I'm beginning to see where the Yanks get the reputation as sore losers. There was me blaming John McEnroe all this time. So now that the war was over and the people were counting the cost of the war in lives lost, the elite were counting the profits of the war in arms sold and beginning to realise that they now had a third weapon, the sale of arms to go along with their oil and their money lending. These 3 things were going to complete their arsenal, the arsenal they were going to take into the 20th century and basically turn America into the first superpower. Now, this attitude, plus the discovery of oil in the Middle East around about 1907, these were the things that were going to shape the course of the 20th century like nothing else. All that was needed now for the Americans was to widen their nets and to maximise their power. And to this end, they turned their eyes to the east. They turned their eyes to Europe. Now, they didn't have to wait long, because by 1914, Europe was embroiled in the greatest war ever, World War I. So the elite of America, with all these arms and all this oil and all this money, were itching to get involved. But despite being so powerful, the word of the people was still holding sway in America, and they didn't want to get into World War I, so the Americans needed an excuse, otherwise known as a false flag, and they got it in the shape of the sinking of the Lusitania. So America made its entrance into World War I. They made it quite late, a year and a half late, but they still made some money. But that was nothing compared to what happened in World War II. Now again, the Americans were itching to get into World War II, but again, the people were against it. So again, they needed a false flag. Why don't we sink another ship? That won't do any good. They're not going to fall for the same trick twice. So what they came up with was Pearl Harbor, which had a double effect, because America had these atomic bombs they were just itching to drop. And they knew that even if they managed to land one on Hitler's head, they'd never be forgiven by Europe for dropping atomic bombs there. So they had to find somewhere else. And that's where their eyes turned to Japan. So they lured Japan into attacking Pearl Harbor with the twofold excuse to get into the World War II and to drop these horrendous bombs. So World War II really was the making of America. It made it the richest, most powerful nation. It's the time where the Americans really bared their teeth and showed their superpower to the whole world. And the elite, the arms dealers, made fortunes. So at the end of World War II, the Americans now had a real thirst for global fighting and for the profits it brought, an unquenchable thirst. But they weren't willing to wait. We can't wait for one European nation 10, 15 years down the line falling out with another. What are we going to do? So what they did was they set up their very own warmongering department. In 1947, they called it the CIA. Now this department was hell-bent on causing unrest, hell-bent on destabilising nations all over the world. And it managed to do plenty of both in the second half of the 20th century, which led to many more opportunities for the Americans to show and to grow their power. Till next time, feel free to share, subscribe, comment. See you soon. Take care.